Tomorrow there's a tournament featuring some great content creators here in New York City where I am at. There's going to be 16 of us. They just released all of the deck lists today, so we're going to take a look at all the deck lists and look at kind of what cards are being played by the different players and kind of quickly analyzing what the field looks like. So let's quickly go through the deck list that everyone submitted, starting with myself. Everyone had to submit 2 decks that had unique cards between the 2 of them, so none of the cards could be duplicates between the 2. We submitted our first deck as Deathwave, the deck that we had claimed is the best deck, so I'm going to put it to the test, see how good it is in this tournament. My second deck was just a Shuri deck with Vision. It ran just like good stuff, bottom line, Sunspot, Scorpion Armor, and then Shuri with Vision to make it a little bit more ambiguous and harder to arrow us, and then also Arnim Zola to give that Arnim Zola or Taskmaster kind of ambiguity as well. So we'll see how people play around this. Let's go into the other people real quick. We have Eggs, which is playing a Zabu Hawk list, and this list is mainly just built around Zabu, Dark Hawk, Rock Slide stuff, but also has the top end with White Queen, Devil Dino, and of course, Arrow is just a good card in the deck. Next up, we have Thor Lockjaw, just big cards with Thor and Jubilee and Lockjaw to get the hammer to put into Lockjaw, Wasp with the hammer, and Jane Foster to pull out the Thor and Wasp, the hammer and Wasp. Next up, we have D-Money, who brought Destroyer X, which is just Destroyer with Professor X. So it's running basically the Spectrum Destroyer list without Spectrum. We'll see how that goes. And then we have D-Money with Dino Collector, which is just Dino with Collector, so it runs a lot of the generation cards. And then we have Ordinary Harry, which is running Thanos Zoo. So it's a Thanos list that runs the Zoo cards, Kazar, Blue Marvel. But it's also running just like the Spectrum ongoing kind of theme as well, with Lockjaw to pull some of these cards out. Leech, maybe get it early. M'Baku is a little bit spicy. We'll see how that goes as well. And then we have Sarah Control from Harry. And this is just a standard control list. You want to give up kind of priority and try and play out your Shang-Chi, Enchantress, Killmonger, kill some of the stuff. White Queen maybe will give you a big card to play out as well. Sarah allows you to play out your 2 drops. And with Zabu, your 3 drops, a lot of them on the last turn. I don't know how good this list will be against the field. We'll have to see. Next up, we have Nina. Nina's playing a Dino Arrow, so it's just like Dino with some cards to keep the Dino hand big, and then Arrow and Doctor Doom to kind of play around other people's arrows as well. And then she's also playing the good cards list, basically. It's just as many good cards as she can fit in a list. She is running Sunspot and Killmonger, so we'll have to see how those 2 cards interact with each other a little bit. Cloak is interesting because it doesn't really have any movement cards in here, so we'll see if she's just going to utilize that in some good way, maybe just for a 2/4 drop as well. It is running like Leech, so it could shut down some stuff. Professor X could add some spicy stuff with the Daredevil. We'll have to see how that works out. Alex is running Zero Atuma, so it's got the Invisible Woman and Zero to get the Atuma out there. It is running Arrow with a list that runs Invisible Woman is a little bit... it's hard to get priority to get a good Arrow turn if all your cards are hidden behind Invisible Woman, so we'll have to see how that works out. But if you're able to zero out some big cards, not behind the Invisible Woman, Maximus is a big card as well. You can get some good priority. There's no armor, so armor is usually a good card with Atuma, so without that, it's going to be a little bit tougher. Arrow and Doom and Magneto are just good cards, so we'll have to see how this works out. And then his other list is very spicy. It's Cerebro 3, so I've never seen... Well, not that I've kind of seen it. I've never seen it played, actually, but Iron Fist and Multiple Man in Cerebro 3. Well, let's see how that works out. You can double a Cerebro 3. It's not running Sentinel, which I think is staple in Cerebro 3, so we'll have to see how that works out. And then we have Specimen. Specimen's running Shuri Sandman. So Shuri Sandman is basically just like a top-end Shuri cards. It is running like this Wong Doom kind of combo as well, which is good with Sandman because your opponent can only play into one location, so if you're able to get these cards out. He runs Zabu to get the Sandman out early, or a Shuri or Wong out early as well. We'll have to see, maybe even a Jubilee to pull out one of his big threats. Yeah, this is an interesting, it's a very unique deck to the tournament, so we'll have to see how this goes. Next up, Sarah Surfer from from Specimen. We'll have to see how he does it. It's a kingpin kind of list, but it seems mainly like to based around the 3 drops with Sarah and Surfer. But he's calling it a kingpin, so the kingpin is kind of the spicy tech in this deck with the Juggernaut. I'm not so sure how. It's pretty much the only 2 cards that interact with Kingpin are Arrow and Juggernaut, so we'll have to see how that works out for him. But yeah, and then going into Jesse Geese James. Geese is playing a Thanos Lockjaw. So Thanos Lockjaw, it's got the big cards with the Lockjaw. Not much low end because you have the Thanos generated tokens. So again, just the Lockjaw list, pulling out some spicy tech with the Super Scroll. We'll see how this goes. And then the second deck, it's Big Spice, aka just a Sauron Shuri list. So this is similar to like a video I put out a couple days ago about a Sauron list. He's running 3 different cards than I was. Cosmo Daredevil and Sunspot, where I was running 0, I think Scorpion and some other card. And yeah, so it's not too different from our deck. We'll just see how he does with this deck in the tournament. Next up, we have R. Hickey or Ricky, I'm not sure. And they're playing a Shuri list. So this is Shuri, but without Arrow. So we'll have to see how this goes. One thing to note, it is a pretty standard Shuri list, just got some good cards at the bottom. It's running Titania for 0 as well. Like there's no Moon Girl, but it's got the She-Hulk Titania. I've seen Moon Girl in a list like this before. We'll just see how this goes. The Black Panther tech also could be good with Artem Zola. I'm not a big fan of the Black Panther tech, but we'll see. So one thing, our Ricky is not playing Arrow in either of the lists, so we'll have to see how this goes. Thanos Zoo. It is running the Zoo Spectrum top end. So it does have Lockjaw again. It's trying to pull out the Zoo cards. It's not like a big Lockjaw list. It is mainly built around the Zoo, so you want to be able to get your 1-drops out. So, because you want them to live. One thing about this is it's not armors in this list, so you can't have armor in both lists. So there's no armor to protect your 1-drops against like a Killmonger or anything like that. So that's a little bit of a problem with Thanos Zoo if you do run up against Killmongers. Next up is Default Dan. Default Dan is running Coco Four's deck that he had created. It is a Zabu Hawk kind of Sarah control hybrid. So it's running Zabu and Sarah, the Dark Hawk, Rock Slide, but it also has the Shang and Enchantress. So Shang, Enchantress, and Cosmo. So it's got some control elements to it. It's got the Zabu Hawk. So we'll have to see how this goes. Second up is a Dino Bounce Bros kind of deck. So it's got a lot of the Dino Generation kind of cards, but so it's good with the Collector. It's like mainly around Collector and Dino, it seems like. So you're hoping to bounce stuff back to your hand to pump up that Collector, play it back out for cheap after you beast it. You get the Agent Coulson to kind of pump some more cards in there. Moon Girl, you can copy your Dino or She-Hulk. We'll have to see how this goes. It could be good, actually. Seems like a pretty okay deck. Next is our first person we're going up against in the tournament. It's Lee, so his first deck is a Sarah control list. This is a pretty standard Sarah control from like very early days. There was this kind of list almost exactly like this. A lot of people had run like Carnage with the Nova, but Nova got nerfed and Mysterio got nerfed. So a lot of people started swapping out their decks. Rescue also fell out of favor because it's just a very telegraphed play and everyone's running Shang-Chi pretty much. I'll show you how the card breakdown is at the end, but you guys will see. Rescue, yeah, very out of meta card right now, but he's bringing it back. Lee second deck is something he calls Strong Woman, but it is a Devil Dino Arrow deck, so it's got the Devil Dino cards to build it up, but it's also got the Arrow top end Chavez for maybe a little bit more consistency early on. And then you got She-Hulk, which you could Moon Girl and maybe get a skip turn to be played out. Next up, we have Drewberry, who his decks are a little bit different than everyone else's. So this one he calls Chat Drafted This. So it seems kind of like a arena draft list with just a bunch of random cards. Some of them are pretty good. He does happen to have some of the worst cards though, like Baron Mordo and Baku in this list. So I don't know if he's going to end up playing this list in the actual tournament. But his next list is not that much better, I would say. I don't know. He might just not be Series 3 complete because a lot of these lists look like basically like a Series 2 card with some Series 2 deck with like some sprinkled in Series 3. So it's kind of like a Sarah list. It's like a Sarah strong guy list. So he's trying to maybe discard his hand at the end. He's got 3 discard cards. He's got just a couple other good cards in here like Maximus and Lizard, Okoye, Angela. But then he's got some like more out of the meta cards like Star Lord. Green Goblin is also just like an okay card to put in. It can buff up your Angela, not fill up a spot. We'll have to see how this plays out. And then we have Windaber. Windaber is playing another Thanos Lockjaw list. So this is a big Lockjaw list. So he's got the big cards. This is not like the Zoo list that we had seen from some of the other people. It's just trying to pop out these big cards from the Lockjaw with Thanos. So it does require you to draw that Lockjaw to have that consistency. It's got Quinjet to play out free Thanos cards as well. All right, and then Windaber's second one is he calls it Solve for X, which I don't necessarily understand exactly, but it is a Sarah control list. So it's running the control card Shang-Chi, Killmonger, Juggernaut kind of control-y, but it's hoping to put out a lot of power later on in the game. The Sarah allows you to play out Mysterio for 1, Lizard for 1. It's only running 2 4-drops, so it doesn't run Zabu like the other list. I'll just see how this plays out. And then Felicity, also taking a Deathwave deck. We also took Deathwave. I'm not sure if Felicity owns She-Hulk. This opted to not be a She-Hulk list. I'm not a huge fan of Nova in this list. It doesn't usually buff that much. And a lot of times you're ending up killing some of the stuff that did buff, like Squirrel Girl or the Hood. And also, I'm not a huge fan of the Hood anymore but the Hood is actually okay without the She-Hulk list because you can play it out just like on your wave turn after you've Killmongered. But typically with the Hood, it becomes a little bit awkward, and a lot of times you end up losing priority early because of that -2, especially if you get armored or something with the Hood. It could really mess you up. And then Felicity second is another big Lockjaw list. She opted to put Domino on this list, which would make it so you have less likely chance of pulling a bad card out of a Lockjaw, but it does actually lower your chances of drawing Lockjaw in the first place, so I'm not a huge fan of Domino in this kind of list. And then it's just like the Thor list as well, so you can have the Hammer to play into it later. There aren't too many cards to play into Lockjaw. You do have Ironheart to play into it maybe, but yeah, it's a little bit, you got the big cards. We'll have to see how this goes. It does have Wong, so maybe you can get a Wong Dr. Doom going as well. Wong Ironheart. We'll have to see how this performs, or if she plays it. I don't know if she'll stick to the Deathwave deck because you don't have to play both your decks. Next up is Coco 4. Coco 4 has Dino X. So Dino X is a dinosaur list with the dinosaur cards with Professor X. It's running Arrow, so this is like just an overall just good cards list. It's got Mr. Fantastic, which is fantastic at getting priority, which is great because you can spread it 2 power among all 3 lanes. And then Cosmo and Shang as some good tech cards. Armor, also a good tech card. And then it's got just like Professor Daredevil kind of synergy where you can maybe choose out a lane. And then the second deck for Coco 4 is a Valkyrie list. It's a Thanos Valkyrie. So it's running Ghost, it's running Beast, it's got Quinjet, it's got Carnage to eat up some of those stones, it's got Doc Ock to kind of pull some cards out of your opponent's hand, and then Valkyrie maybe to follow that up. One of those problems, though, with playing Valkyrie into the Doc Ock lane is that you're going to end up nuking your Doc Ock as well. It's not running something like Luke Cage or something like that to keep your Doc Ock big, so hopefully with like the Soul Stone or something, he can end up winning that lane. But yeah, that's his game plan is what he had mentioned. So we'll have to see how that goes. Lastly, we have Valentine. So Valentine is bringing also some pretty spicy decks, bringing this Puffy Jack is what he calls it, which is a Shuri Odin deck that tries to get a huge yellow jacket with a Forge Wong Shuri Odin play. If you play all those cards in one lane, your next card is going to be absolutely giant, which you play out yellow jacket on the same turn with the Odin, and you get like a 200 power yellow jacket or something, or sometimes bigger. I actually don't know the exact numbers, but it's pretty big. But yeah, so that's the ideal plan for this. It is just like a Shuri list that is just a little bit less consistent than the other Shuri list. It doesn't have Arrow. It doesn't have just like good cards at the bottom end, so it becomes a little bit tougher to actually have it consistently work, but when it does pop off, it's a lot of power. Valentine's second list is just like a random stuff list. So he's trying to just get as much random generation as he can. So he's got like Agent 13, he's got Cable, Maria Hill, Agent Coulson, White Queen, Nick Fury, Hell Carrier, bunch of random cards, even the Morph to try and get a random card for your opponent onto the board. So you can't really play around much in this deck because a lot of it's just going to be random cards that he's going to getting. He's got the collector to get the value from all these random generation cards as well. We'll have to see how this does. Yeah, at first I played this against him yesterday as a practice game, and I didn't know his deck list going into it. I thought it was a MODOK list because I saw him play What Lady Sif into Hellcarrier, and I was like, oh, maybe it's MODOK, but nope, just complete random generation. So yeah, let's go into the deck stats now. So when you take all the cards together, this is just an energy distribution. I broke each card out into a type of card. So explaining these real quick. Discount are just like the 3 discount cards: Quinjet, Sarah, Zabu. Generation cards are cards that generate cards to your hand, like White Queen, Agent 13, Agent Coulson, and so on. Build around are just like cards that you build an entire deck around. So like Devil Dino, Lockjaw, Shuri, Thanos Wave. Like some of these, like you could just stick into other decks. Like you can just throw a Surfer into a non-Surfer deck, potentially. You can throw Spectrum into a non-Spectrum deck. You can throw Devil Dino into pretty much anything. Devil Dino is like sitting in between that and something I call good cards. Good cards are cards that you can just throw into any deck because they're just like good value cards that just do good things. So these cards pretty much just good cards. And then we have supporting cards. These cards are generally cards that you need one of your you need a build around card to play. So you generally wouldn't play these without kind of a build around kind of idea. It's not necessarily, you don't need necessarily a build around card, but you need a build around idea. So like Blue Marvel is technically kind of a good card, but it's like you need to be playing like a Zoo-ish type deck to play it. So I put it as a supporting card. Collector, you need those generation cards to be able to do it as well. So it's kind of a supporting card in that way that it needs some other thing, but you don't really, this could be technically a build around card, but I put it more as supporting since I think it's kind of not a deck you would say like it's mainly a collector deck. It's, you do have generation cards, but it's close. It's close. That one, I think collector is one of the closer ones that between. And then tech cards are ones you just can throw in your deck to do some things. The one card I would say that's weird to be calling a tech card, it's kind of like more of a finisher card, but it didn't really fit nicely into any of these buckets I created, is Arrow. Arrow is kind of a tech card in that it does do some tech-like things. But yeah, these cards are just cards you would throw in your deck to do some damage to your opponent, like Shang-Chi, Cosmo, Killmonger, Armor, shut some things down. It could tech could be to like protect you, like with Professor X or Armor, or it could be to like change up the locations with like Storm or Rhino or Scarlet Witch. It could be to pull cards out of their hands. It could be to block them from playing cards in a spot. Those are kind of tech cards, and they're very popular, I would say. So it's one thing to look at. But yeah, if you can see this, like I did the bad cards, 2 bad cards here are technically good cards, but they're just not good. So I didn't want to call them good. These cards are just Baramordo and Morph, I would say. Like they're cards that you can put into any deck, but they're just bad. So I didn't want to put them into the good stuff list. But yeah, there aren't too many of those in this tournament. So looking at this, the distribution, we have the most good cards, which is not surprising because they can just slot into anything. And then we have just a lot of tech cards. So the 5-drop is actually surprisingly 26 cards, which this includes people playing the same card. So if we look at this, Arrow is the majority of those 26. Arrow and Leech make up a big portion of that. We take a look at this. The people playing Arrow, almost everyone, 11 people are playing it. There's 5 people not playing Arrow, which is actually more surprising to me. And additionally, we have a few people not playing Shang-Chi as well. So Specimen not playing Shang-Chi, Ricky not playing Shang-Chi, Valentine not playing Shang-Chi, Drew Bear's not playing it. Not playing Arrow, I think, is more surprising to me because I think it's going to be tough. But yeah, unsurprisingly, Shang-Chi and Arrow at the top. Those are the 2 cards I expect to be in the most decks. Surprisingly, though, Quinjet is at the top. I did not expect Quinjet to be played as much as it is. Quinjet, I feel like, it's probably due to because a lot of people are playing Moon Girl. There are a few people playing Thanos. So if we look at the build around, we look at Thanos, we have 5 people playing Thanos. And I'm pretty sure every single one of these Thanos players are playing Quinjet. So that's 5 Quinjets right there. But then if you look at all the people playing Dino, you have 9 Dinos. Moon Girl, we have 4 people playing Moon Girl. I'm sure each one of these people also are playing Quinjet. Maybe just like Coulson. Maybe all 5 of these people are playing it as well. So, yeah, Quinjet being that high, a little bit surprising. I would not have expected that. Chavez being at 8 as well is also surprising to me. A lot of people are liking Chavez. I'm not a huge Chavez fan. But yeah, that's one card that I think is a little bit overrated. Devil Dino being at 9, not surprising. I thought it might even be a little higher. Almost over half the field is bringing Devil Dino. But more surprising is that like only I think 6 or so of those are actual Devil Dino lists. A couple of those other lists are like Lockjaw lists that they just throw Devil Dino into to get a big card that can pop out of it. Lizard, also not surprising. Cosmo, not surprising. She-Hulk, not surprising up at the top. Killmonger being this high is a little bit surprising because I guess they just have them in the Sarah list along with the Death Wave list that me and Felicity brought. So I'll have to see. Magneto being this low is actually a little surprising. I thought more people would bring Magneto. And then let's look at who are the cringe people who brought Leech. You know what I'm saying? Who would bring Leech? I thought that's cringe nowadays, but I guess not. We have Eggs, Felicity, Harry, Jeese, Nina, and Windeber all bringing Leech. So we'll have to see how that goes in their Leech decks. That's it's a pretty highly played card. Yeah, Lockjaw. Lockjaw seems to be the most popular. If we look at this breakdown here, this is just a list of the archetypes that I identified for each of these people with some slight notes that they have. And I kind of tallied up the types of decks people are playing. So Lockjaw is like the most popular type. There are like a couple different types of Lockjaws people are playing. So some people are playing Big Lockjaw. Some people are playing Thanos Lockjaw. Some people are playing, I don't know, just like the Thor Lockjaw. So there's a couple different, there's like the Thanos Zoo Lockjaw. So that's kind of hard to pin as Lockjaw. So that's why some of these Thanos and Lockjaws kind of overlap. I didn't make these all unique. I just wanted to see like how many people are playing Thanos, how many people are playing Lockjaw kind of thing. And then Sarah is also like just a popular deck archetype here as well. Shuri also pretty popular. But yeah, you wouldn't really notice that as much in this kind of list because it kind of shows you that like Arrow's the most popular, you know, which is not really, since it's like a tech card, can't really see it. So the biggest card that's kind of a build around is Devil Dino, but like 3 of those aren't even a build around Devil Dino. So Lockjaw is kind of the biggest. Yeah, we look at just build around cards. Lockjaw, Shuri, Thanos, Wave. Wave, surprisingly, Felicity and I built a actual Wave deck. Nina just included Wave in one of her other decks. That's not technically a Wave deck. It does run She-Hulk, so we'll have to see how that plays out as well. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about all this data if you like to see this breakdown. This is before the tournament tomorrow. We'll have to see how it goes. Maybe we'll do a post analysis based on the decks that ended up winning so we can see what was the most successful. Who do you guys think is going to win? Check it out. You can check out the stream. I'll put the links down below. It's going to be on Kawa Tech's channel tomorrow. I'll put all the links. It's going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And by tomorrow, I mean if you're watching this on Friday, if you're watching this after, maybe you're just checking it out. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. See you guys later.